Good afternoon, Who Dat Nation, and happy week 6 to our Bayou Blitz family. Unfortunately, we're coming to you with yet another frustrating Sunday in a lot of ways as the New Orleans Saints fall to the New England Patriots by a score of 25-19. You can't say it wasn't an entertaining game. There were some positives to take away from it. Also, some areas that I thought showed some massive regression. And here to break it all down is your Bayou Blitz post-game show, hosted by myself, Bob Rose, and him, Brendan Boylan. Brendan, is your blood pressure through the roof, or how you feeling?
I don't think it's too bad because I think we've covered enough of these games over the years where it's like you knew the direction this was going without being a pessimist, I guess, or pessimistic, if you will. But you just kind of had this feeling like, okay, first half looked okay, better in some senses than I thought offensively. And then you get to the second half, the defense plays better. The offense still can't find the end zone. And there's just a lot of little things. So you kind of had this assumption or this feeling that the offense was going to get in its own way. Even though the defense presents them opportunities and chances to get some points, cut into the lead or take the lead. And that's ultimately what happened, right? Is the offense got in their own way. I do think there are positives. Like you said, I think there are some regression points that we'll get to. And I don't want to spend a lot of this year, because I do think a lot of this year you could sit and try to find moral victories. I do think there are some quote unquote moral victories from today, or things you walk away happy about. But ultimately, this is a win-loss business. And the Saints did not pull out a victory today. And a game that you and I have said, even when the schedule came out before the Patriots went on this little bit of a hot streak, we felt, hey, this is a winnable game on paper. And for 3.5 quarters, it looked like a winnable ball game for the New Orleans Saints. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do so, but that's kind of the season we expected.
Yeah, a little bit. And the Saints fall to 1-5. It's not time to put their season on life support just yet. But they obviously continue to have a lot of work that they need to do. Brendan, before we go any further, though, I want to tell you folks about an organization we are proud to help promote here at the Bayou Blitz, and that is Get Checked or Check Out. Get Checked or Check Out website at the bottom of the screen, tcynow.org. Folks, go visit it, go donate it. Go browse through it. Get Checked or Check Out is an organization put in place to help steer patients and their families in the right direction when you receive a negative medical diagnosis, whether that's physical, of course, mental or emotional. If you or a loved one just gets a diagnosis that makes you fearful in every way, and you don't know where to turn next, Get Checked or Check Out is there for you. They help steer patients and their families and their loved ones in the next direction, help you take the next step as far as treatment options, research options, therapy options, be it individual or family therapy. And again, that's not for physical medical issues, but also mental and emotional as well. Having said that, Get Checked or Check Out is promoting October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I think everybody knows that October is pink, and Pink Ribbon Month has been so since the 1980s. What you may not know is that breast cancer is the second most diagnosed cancer globally. This increases the vital importance to stay informed and be proactive about getting regularly screened. By the way, that's not just for breast cancer, that's for everything. Get your screenings regularly, make those appointments, and just just get yourself checked out as often as possible. But as far as breast cancer goes, regular mammograms, awareness of family history, and self-checks at home all will help with early detection and therefore improve treatment outcomes. Other ways that you can help yourself is maintaining a healthy weight, getting regular exercise, eating a healthy diet, limit your alcohol consumption, and absolutely positively do not smoke. So remember that rest of October, we're going to be talking about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But also remember, regardless of what the issue is, breast cancer or otherwise, men and women, make those doctor's appointments. Keep those doctor's appointments. Get yourself screened regularly. Just try that part is in your control as far as what you can do to maintain a healthy life and an ongoing life. And we all want that. And that's why Get Checked or Check Out is there. Now, the major fundraiser that they have during the course of the year, folks, is the original Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. The 2026 cruise is from March 26th through March 30th. It's sailing out of Jacksonville, Florida, not New Orleans this year, but it's also docking in the Bahamas, which is a new destination, specifically Celebration Key in Nassau. If you're like me, I am flying into Jacksonville directly. I've already not only booked my room, but my room is paid off. So we're ready to go officially. This is a Carnival Cruise Line, and you can book your room by getting in touch with Summer Cochran at 985-643-6958. That's 985-643-6958. That is her cell phone, so you can either text or call her, whichever is more convenient for you, and book those rooms as soon as possible, guys. It's just a small down payment with the rest not even due until after Christmas into January. And make sure when you book, make sure you tell Summer that you were referred by the Bayou Blitz. If you are coming from the New Orleans or Gulf Coast region, there are still some group packages available that leaves where y'all will leave New Orleans together. You can get a hold of Shireen DeWalt at Get Checked or Check Out, or reach out to me. I'll give you Shireen's contact information. But folks, this is so important. This cruise. I want to see new faces on there, but really, it's like a Saints family reunion. Saints greats will be on this cruise this year. Confirmed so far is Delvin Breaux, Tyrone Hughes, Michael Lewis, Courtney Roby, and Pierre Thomas, with more to come. And these guys aren't just available during certain sessions or certain times of the cruise. You're hanging out with them during the entire time. You're eating meals together. You're hanging out on the deck. You're going to the beach together. And it's a great way to get to know. And I will attest, all five guys are absolutely terrific. I love all their families too. I think that they felt the same way about my family. I don't know that if they felt the same way about me. But the cruise itself, it's a blast. There's a highly competitive putt-putt golf tournament. I believe there's going to be a karaoke contest this year, as well as a trivia contest, along with Q&A sessions to sit down with these guys in a group setting, us all together, and you ask them any question, anything you've always wanted to know about their careers and their life. It's not only a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a getaway, for a vacation, but you're benefiting an absolutely great cause. So again, get a hold of Summer Cochran or go to tcynow.org. Donate, please. But the major donation for this organization will be if you're able to go on the original Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. Again, those dates are March 26th through March 30th. I'm going. I want to see you guys there too.
I'm excited to contribute weighted golf balls. That is what I'm contributing to Bob Rose and I guess Courtney Roby, if you guys are going to run it back from last year. So weighted golf balls on me. I will make sure that I will reach out to your wife to make sure they get packed properly. Right. I don't know how you are about packing. I just know me. I'm throwing stuff in my bag last minute. I don't prep anything. It's just whatever I see gets thrown in my bag and we go.
No, that's my wife. I'll be packed 3 days before we go.
Okay, so then I'm going to send them to you. Okay, yeah. Great. Okay, so it's the opposite in your household than it is mine. Katie's
Yes.
packed 3 days before, all that good stuff. So, okay, great. I will send some weighted golf balls to you, Bob, as my contribution so you guys win this year. I guess let's start with the positives. I do want to say that, I mean, special teams as a whole probably wasn't that great. Kai Kroger, that first punt, 23 yards. But Blake Groupie did have a Blake Groupie type of day. It looked a
Yes.
lot better than it has. I do tip my cap to Kellen Moore, who was kind of asked about the situation, and he told reporters he still had a lot of faith in Blake. And I think that goes a long way when you're struggling with confidence to hear from your coach. Like, no, we still have trust in him. You know, he's going to be our guy, that type of thing. And when you get that confidence instilled in you and you're able to go out and perform, great. So, yeah, I think Blake Groupie for sure was one of the bright spots, a guy who had really struggled through the early goings of the season. You see on the screen, perfect on the day with field goals and extra points, including a 54-yarder. That'll be positive number one for me. I think positive number two, and the broadcast kept saying it, and it was getting a little annoying there at the end. But I do think Spencer Rattler had a good day. Maybe not a great day, but he did have a good day. And if you look at these statistics and compared them to last week, Bob, they are pretty similar. 20 completions last week for Rattler, 20 again today, in the 225 to 230 range both times. Doesn't throw for a touchdown. We'll get into some of that. And then he's able to run the ball somewhat effectively. You and I have both said he is more athletic than a lot of the quarterbacks that have been in New Orleans recently. He's not a guy like Lamar Jackson or a guy that you're going to be running in these options, sets, but he is a guy that allows you to get a little creative. You did see it on a read option to pick up a first down in the game. I thought Spencer was good. Out of his 6 incompletions, I think 4 were targeted to Chris Olave. Chris is in a weird spot. I think there are some positives to take and there's some negatives to take from it. Another positive, for the most part, I thought the offensive line was good.
Yes.
For a second consecutive week.
Pass blocking.
Pass blocking, yes. We will get into the negatives on the other side of that. But pass blocking, yeah. I am a little surprised Cesar Ruiz was healthy and ready to go for this one. But I thought pass protection-wise, it's the second consecutive week where they were solid. Do you have any other positives you want to touch on?
I mean, I'll go you a step further. I completely agree with with your 3 main positives. I will throw Olave in there as the 4th. I thought Chris was the most tuned in I have seen him yet this year. I know he's going to be credited with 2 or 3 drops. One of those, it doesn't make it much better. One of those was absolutely not a drop. It was a completion and a fumble. Either way, it's not a positive play. And then another drop late was a high throw, a catchable, but a high behind throw from Spencer Rattler. Again, just like we always say about Chris, you have to make those plays if you're going to be an elite wide receiver. But I thought Chris Olave was the most consistent weapon for Spencer Rattler and the New Orleans Saints today. And I'll take it a step further with what you said about Rattler. I agree. He was good, not great. Probably good to very good range. I thought Rattler, until those a couple, 2-3 high throws or off-target throws in the 4th quarter, and that's nerves from a young quarterback, folks. I thought he was the most accurate I have seen from him yet. Decisive. I will say that this is the best game I have seen Spencer Rattler play as an NFL quarterback. I think that at the very least, he should have the talk of when Rattler should be benched in favor, not if, but when Rattler should be benched in favor of Tyler Shuck. I think that that's at the back of the shelf right now. I still believe it'll happen at some point in time, if for no other reason than to give Shuck experience if the Saints get eliminated from the playoffs. Rattler is playing his way into the starting role, not out of it. And that's what we were hoping coming out of training camp, that whoever got this job, whether it was Tyler or Spencer, that whoever would play their way in to the role and improve with each passing week. And I think that we can say that about Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point of hoping there was whoever won the competition would prove that they won the competition and it wasn't just the lesser of two evils, it is reassuring to see continued growth out of Spencer Rattler. So I will say those are really good positives from this game. Negatives, regressions, right? We'll start because I already mentioned the offensive line, so let's start there. This team has no rushing attack at all. And I'll throw the Kamara numbers up on the screen, Bob. I know you have team rushing numbers in front of you, but got Kamara just at over 3 yards per carry. Even Kendre Miller, who has seen some uptick in snaps the last few weeks, not effective running the football. And yes, this team was in the game for the entirety of the game. But God, it would have been nice to run the ball a little bit, not rely on Spencer Rattler having to either step up in the pocket and scramble and kind of dink and dunk his way through a lot of the second half. It would have been nice to be able to hand the ball off. We talk about it all the time. What's a quarterback's best friend is a good running game. Right now, the Saints don't have that. No. And a lot of it starts up front. Most of it starts up front.
It does, but I'll say a couple things about that. Kendre, only 21 yards on 8 carries. He's fighting through tackles, though. You almost feel like a breakout for Kendre is coming at some point in time. It might not be a 100-yard performance, especially if he's splitting carries with Alvin. But with the way Kendre is fighting, he's going to break some runs. That's inevitable. But like you said, I mean, the Saints as a team only rushed for 3.2 per carry. And one of the few things that I agreed with the announcers on today was that when you have a young quarterback, really any quarterback, but especially a young quarterback, you need to have the threat of play action. And we have been highly critical, both in writing and on air, about Spencer Rattler, specifically, and the offense's ability in general inability to take downfield shots. Well, what often sets that up is the threat of a run or a play action fake. And when you cannot run the ball, you've taken that right off of the table. All the more reason why I am impressed with Spencer Rattler, because I mean they only had the one deep shot early in the game, first play of the game, to Olave, which was a decent throw, but Rattler still hit a few really nice intermediate passes. We're not necessarily talking about slinging the ball all over the yard here, but our criticism was you're not forget the deep shots for a second. You're not even hitting the intermediate balls. Well, Spencer was doing that today, and he was hitting Olave, Shaheed, Kamara, Cooks. He was hitting them in stride. He was hitting them with accurate throws, and also the lack of a running game, which is partially on the offensive line. At the same time, gives the offensive line an extra pat on the back because now you're blocking pass rushers without that threat, that delay, that split-second delay of a play action. So they've got their ears pinned back. So I thought while the line needs criticized for the inability to run the football, and what, by the way, is a very good New England run defense, but still, they were impressive as pass blockers. And I'll put this on coaching too. Early in the game, we saw Alvin get a couple decent gains on off tackle runs, and then we saw them get away from that by the second quarter and stay away from it through the rest of the game. That part is on coaching, my friend.
I agree. I was critical of this probably 2 weeks ago and a little bit last week. Is I felt that the use for Alvin was not good, right? I felt today, at least in the pass game, we at least saw him split out. We saw a couple receptions. We saw him a little bit more involved in that aspect. And I understand the whole he's getting up there in age and being able to split carries and all that, but he's still your best offensive weapon. I would love to do a deep dive on stats and look the last time that Kamara's usage in terms of a rusher or runner has been this low for a stretch of 3 games or more. Right? I can't think of a time, even his rookie season or even during the boom and zoom years, where Kamara was getting 10 carries, 8 carries, 12 carries. Or if you want to expand that and go to total touches, right? That's what my concern is just not finding ways to get him involved more. That is a criticism, obviously, of play calling. Oh, one other positive, just to go backwards because we can. There were 2 moments early that I made note of that I thought were important from a confidence standpoint and a coaching standpoint. The first is probably the more obvious of the 2 is the Taysom Hill touchdown. Coming back from injury, getting him involved a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit.
One carry.
But getting him into the end zone. As a guy who's a fan favorite, a leader of the team, I thought that was important. I believe it was the very next drive. Foster Moreau had like an 8 or 9 yard reception. Same situation. Leader of the team, a more local guy, fan favorite, coming off of an ACL injury. It was just important to get those guys or make those guys feel like they were involved in the offense a little bit. Obviously, a long way to go, right? These guys are far from 100%. But little things like that, I do think go a long way, not just for the confidence of the players, but the locker room's perception of the coaching staff. I think it goes a long way, too, to be like, hey, look, like Kellen is taking care of these guys, even though they might not be his guys. Like he inherited these guys, but he's still making sure they're taken care of. I do think that goes a long way. Back to the negatives. You said Chris was a positive. I agree that this was the most in the zone, perhaps, Chris has been this year. The negatives for me are still what should have been a fumble. You already brought up. But to take a positive from that too, that was a hell of a, well, it wasn't a,
yes,
hell of a climbing the ladder to even try to make a play. Like, incredible. But then that's negated when you have another moment late in the game where it's a similar situation. You get your hands on it. It's less contested, and you can't come up with it. It's hard to call it a drop. I'll have to go back and see if it actually got recorded as a drop. But I
believe it did.
It did.
Oh, wow. I believe so.
So it was like half a yard too much in front of him. But again, you get a hand on it. If you're going to be the number 1 receiver, you expect that play to be made. And that's our biggest criticism of Chris. Right? I think you and I have done a very good job over the last however many weeks of saying we like Chris Olave. I think Chris has a special spot in our hearts because of that draft and how well we did on calling that draft, right? Even though that draft has had some misses. I wouldn't mind keeping Chris around. But the problem's going to be when we get to the end of this year, what type of money does Chris expect? And right now, what this team expects of Chris Olave is for him to be a number 1 receiver. And he makes plays, most targeted receiver in football. But the yards per catch are down. Not all on Chris. He made some good plays today. But it's also frustrating because it feels like anytime you need a big play from number 12. It doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
To where you go back in Saints history, and I just said number 12, so we'll start there because we always love to start with, those teams in that era. Marcus Colston was a guy that you could rely on to make big plays. You want to go a little bit before that, 87 was a guy you could rely on to make some plays. Joe Horn. Then you had Marcus Colston. Even though he wasn't a number one receiver, Lance Moore was always a clutch guy. Jimmy Graham was always a clutch guy, even though he wasn't a receiver. He might as well have been the number one receiver. Mike Thomas was a guy that you could rely on to make big plays. And as unfair as it might be to Chris Olave, that is what Saints fans have come to expect.
Well, that's the expectation, and I think it should be with a number one receiver, especially when you have a young quarterback, that you're trying to develop within your system. And like you said, I love Chris Olave as a player. I love watching him play. I have since his sophomore year, since his second year at Ohio State. But they've already picked up his fifth-year option. So he's going to be making number one wide receiver money next year, regardless of whether you believe the Saints are going to trade him or not. Whatever team he's on in 2026, he's making wide receiver one money. He's not making wide receiver one plays, and for the most part, never has.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating part. That is the frustrating part. And you know what? You hate to pin one play and go, well, what if? But that's the reality of the world that we're in, as analysts, writers, fans, all that good stuff. What if Chris reeled that ball in and it was a touchdown? How different does this game go? Which leads me to the next one. For the first 4 weeks of the season, Juwan Johnson was a top 5 fantasy tight end. And even going into this week was still tight end 10 in total PPR, which was impressive, right? What the hell happened to Juwan Johnson being a security blanket the last 2 weeks?
I don't know. But by the way, folks, that was not an effing fumble. His goddamn head, 2 knees, and a hip was on the ground, and the ball was, okay, it was moving, but he was still very well in possession of it. That is not a fumble. Period. End of story. F off Goodell's goons.
I think the interesting thing with that and the Olave non-fumble is the word and the verbiage that is used constantly in stuff like that is it has to be clear and conclusive evidence to overturn the call. Well, for the Olave non-fumble, I felt that there was clear and conclusive evidence that it was a fumble.
Again, yeah, he has complete control. He has taken a third step while turning upfield.
So
you don't get to be more of a catch than that.
Right. And then with Juwan, in a situation like that where you do see movement of the football, he is able to get both hands on it and then go to the ground. Maybe there's still movement, all that. If there's any question, because it's not clear and conclusive, you have to stick with is I don't think I would have been as upset about it or confused by it if they had called a fumble on the field and then just stuck to the call.
Oh, I still would have because I stand by what I said.
But the problem is they said he was down by contact and said, oh, there's enough here to overturn that.
I mean, what that was a makeup call because the Patriots got a couple questionable at best things go their direction too. I am just so sick of corrupt and or incompetent officiating. Now, it wasn't corrupt today, or if it was on equal sides, which by dictionary definition, that rules out corrupt, but it was highly incompetent. And if these assholes want to be on TV so bad, the officials get their pretty little faces on TV, start a goddamn OnlyFans or something. Start your own talk show, whatever. Get out of football because you don't know what you're talking about ever. And I'm sick of saying, that things like this, Goodell's goons, are ruining the game of football. No, they've ruined the game of football. This is an unrecognizable game, and F them for making it that way.
Yeah, I think, and we talked about this before we got on the air, was ultimately the one way to correct some of this, or a lot of it, is being able to suspend, fine, whatever officials for incorrect calls, which sounds like a great idea in the grand scheme of it. The problem being that would mean officials have to admit that they're wrong, or the league has to admit that they were wrong. And I'm not just talking the NFL here, I'm talking across the
No,
board, all sports.
everywhere. Yeah.
And that's why they won't do it. But that would solve a lot. If a player can be fined for an unnecessary roughness penalty, why can't an official be fined for making the wrong call? Right? And I think my frustrations with it go further, not in football, but to the NBA, because the NBA has the 2-minute report where they will release, like questionable calls in the final 2 minutes of games. And the day after the game, they'll go, okay, well, yeah, here at the 123 mark where was ruled a foul, it really wasn't. Well, it doesn't change the outcome of the game. You're just admitting fault without fining anybody or changing anything. So hopefully the NFL doesn't do that, where it's like, oh, we're going to release the whatever reports about, calls being right or wrong. But I digress. Jawan, we haven't seen a lot of Jawan the last 2 weeks. Today, a turnover, a crucial turnover late. I'm just, while there are things that I feel like Spencer Rattler has improved on and this offense has improved on, there are other things where I go, we already talked about the run game, and just the usage of certain players. That's another negative for me. Let's talk defensive negatives.
Yeah, I was going to say the big regression, big negative for me was the play of the secondary, the entire secondary.
After a good week last week, super frustrating, but that's what you expect out of a young group, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what how I was going to caveat that. Quincy Riley was picked on a lot. Quincy made a couple plays. Kool-Aid McKinstry gave up some big plays, but on a couple of those, he was in a perfect coverage. The receiver just made the play on the ball. Jonas Sanker was awful in the first, like embarrassingly awful in the first half. Justin Reed missed a few tackles. Alontae Taylor was caught out of position a couple of times. The entire secondary had massive breakdowns, especially in the first half, but on a couple key situations in the second half too. I believe, I still feel strongly in this group, but to say that they regressed badly this week is a massive understatement.
Yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry too, which we were hoping we turned a corner, right? Really struggled early, had a really good week last week, regressed back to struggling. I want to talk about our friend because he finally played in a game, so I'm feeling a little bit better about our bet. You've described him as, and I want to make sure I'm quoting you correctly, so just give me like a wink wink or a nudge nudge if I do. You have called him one of the best almost finishers in football. Okay, so yeah. This was another prime example game where he got good pressure. You're like, okay, great. And early on, I'm okay with good pressure early on. So, okay, that means something's coming. You're building towards it, right? And then you just never get there. And there were 2 or 3 instances where almost sacks. There was one that sticks out that could have potentially been a strip sack, where it's like half a second late. And that was frustrating. It was good to see him on the field, don't get me wrong. But it was frustrating. Negative-wise, I don't know if this is a negative, but I want to get your thoughts on it since we're talking defense. There was a 2-series stretch, maybe 3-series stretch, where Danny Stutzman was getting snaps over Pete Werner. But it did not appear to be Warner on the sideline for injury. I want to say it was probably more 2 series. There was, some speculation on injury and whatnot, but our friend John Hendricks tweeted out that it did not appear to be injury related. This is another game where I feel like the longer we go into the season, the sickos of the Saints community continue to call for Danny Stutzman. Did you feel anything from Pete Warner today that made you go, yeah, it's time to make the switch? Because again, we did see Stutzman get snaps, which we have not really seen up to this point.
I believe it or not, I actually thought Pete played fairly well today. Early on, he was on 2 different plays. He was way out of position, in his zone on a crossing route. Wouldn't have prevented the reception, but could have cut down the receiver, to minimize the yards after catch. Pete had a sack, the only sack of the game, for the Saints. But that was really forced by Cam Jordan. I'm pretty sure it was Cam, flushing Drake May, forward, and Warner just beat him to the line of scrimmage and brought him down for a massive 1-yard loss. Pete's not a playmaker at his best. Pete's a solid player against the run and just flat out he just flat out doesn't make momentum changing plays. Do I believe it's time to replace him? Yeah. I said that 3 weeks ago. I would replace him on early downs with Danny Stutzman, and then in obvious passing situations, if I'm still going to use 2 linebackers, Demario Davis is going to be one. I bring in either Jalen Ford or Isaiah Stallbert. I trade Pete Warner for a bag of Pez if that's what I can get Pete Warner for. No disrespect to the way he played today. Pete Warner just doesn't add anything to this defense at best, and at worst is a liability in several instances. So that's my take on Pete Warner.
Well, there you have it. Final thing for me, from a negative standpoint, is, and you got to take it with a grain of salt, but you kind of highlighted Sanker at the free safety spot today. For me, the negative is what we've talked about since, obviously they made the Blackman signing, but really since he got hurt, was not bringing in a veteran and letting these guys kind of run. I understand wanting to play the guys. I understand Sanker's been good, but a negative for me is you're going to continue to see this. So it's kind of like a negative, ongoing negative. Is you're going to continue to see broken coverage. You're going to continue to see broken plays because it is a young group as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be something that's going to be really frustrating for a lot of people to watch.
Yeah, and we'll see it not only from Sanker, but we'll see it from Quincy Riley and even Kool-Aid McKinstry. Yep. This is Kool-Aid McKinstry's second year. So we're going to see it. My hope is that we'll see less of it as the season goes along and more big plays in favor of the defense. But that's exactly why I am in agreement that they shouldn't have brought in a veteran safety when Blackman. I love the Blackman signing. Sucks what happened to him. But the fact that you have to rush Sanker into duty, I'm okay with it because it just like we say about the rest of these draft picks, Stutzman, you have to play him to find out what you have, so that way you can better figure out what your legitimate needs are at each position at the end of the year.
And figure out where you're going to hopefully properly use them, i.e. Zach Bond, just to rub salt in the wound. But, Bob, before we close it out, is there anything else from this game in particular you want to touch on? I do want to say this real quick. We will talk about kind of the Sunday splash news on Alvin Kamara, but we're going to save that for our episode. We're trying to figure out some things with my schedule. It's going to be one day next week. We'll keep you guys in the loop. We will talk about that on that show. I think that deserves a much broader conversation because I think it affects more than just Alvin Kamara. I think it affects a lot of veterans on the roster. But we'll save that. We will address it so you guys can, save any questions or whatever you have for that topic for later in the week. But anything you want to, kind of close on when it comes to this ball game in particular?
Well, I mean, look, it's a frustrating loss against what I still think is a beatable team. New England is obviously a little bit further in their development and their rebuilding than what the Saints are. But the Saints played toe to toe with them, and it really had their opportunities to win the game. If you're going to become a good team, though, you have to take advantage of those opportunities. You have to put the ball in the end zone more than once when you have 5 trips into plus territory. Those kind of things. I'm hoping and I'm confident that the team will build on that and learn from it. I'm confident because I have to be confident. There is no direction to go but up at this point. You still, even for you naysayers, you can't criticize the effort. Week in and week out. The Seattle game being the outlier. You as I always said as a coach, and as my philosophy was as a player, I don't mind you making mistakes if 2 things happen. A, you make them going 100 miles an hour because that shows me effort, that shows me competitiveness, and B, you learn from it. Well, the Saints continue to show us the effort. Now they're in the stage of we need to start seeing them learn from it. That's their next step.
And hopefully they do. Like I said at the top, I'm very pleased with the continued growth of certain players. Spencer Rattler in particular, we're seeing week-to-week growth. I think Kendre Miller, even though the numbers aren't there, you're seeing week-to-week growth in Kendre Miller. And obviously the coaching staff does too, because they've handed him the ball a lot more the last few weeks. Those are things that I can appreciate. And we talk about it all the time because we're similar mindsets. Is like effort goes a long way. That's also how you become a fan favorite, is when you give effort. And I think that goes a long way for the fan base as well. As I mentioned, Bob and I are going to figure out next week. It's going to either be Tuesday or Friday is what it seems like. Just with my schedule, we do have a official date for the 5-year anniversary screening of The Dancing Bulldogs, the film I worked on. So if you're in the North Carolina area, you can check out my social media platforms if you want to come out for a night of a movie, refreshments, Q&A, all that fun stuff. Bob has more fun stuff going on. He's got to write about the New Orleans Saints this week and just other things moving forward. I believe you have enough to work with to put together some fun stuff, maybe not fun, but interesting reads over the next few days. Bob, where can people follow you, your work, and also just get a peek into your crazy mind a little bit?
My crazy mind is going to be out there a lot more on display, by the way, if you're following me on social media this coming week and the week after. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, middle finger, middle finger. My Facebook is Bob Rose. Twitter is at BobbyR2613. I post all of my articles along with several other inane thoughts on my social medias, along with show links too, by the way. You can follow my work as well as all the great writers led by John Sigler over at the Saints Wire. It's a USA Today publication, but it can be found on Twitter at the Saints Wire or on Facebook, just Saints Wire. So make sure you check out all of our stuff. I've got 2 post-game pieces coming up, one this evening, another first thing tomorrow morning, along with an editorial or 2 on a couple specific players. And then I'm right into Chicago Bears coverage for week 7. Just keep all that in mind. And again, go to that Get Checked or Check Out website. I want you to check out their website. It's tcynow.org. I also want you to put your down payment down to book your cabin for the 2026 Original Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. Please. I want to meet you face to face. That'd be the greatest way to do it. I want you to have the trip of a lifetime. That is the way to do it. And I want all of us to help get checked or check out. Help us by us helping them. And that's the best way to do it.
There you go. The website is down below. We talked about it a little bit on our show on Wednesday. All the wonderful resources that are there. Go check out the website. Click through a couple things. Educate yourself a little bit, because the more you educate yourself, the more you're able to educate others, and the more you're able to help the people that need to find people like Shireen and this organization. So please go click through, read it up a little bit. On a more haha note, I think Bob gave you guys a preview on if you don't follow him, why you should over the next few weeks, with a little bit of a preview or tangent there. I do want to make sure we say hello to our regulars that have dropped some comments. Tommy, I see you. I also see some frustration from you. DJ, Jerry, Gumbo, and Fear. Thank you guys as always. You guys are constantly in the stream, so we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. For myself, you can follow me virtually everywhere right there at BT Boylan. Busy few days for me. Like I said, if you're in the North Carolina area, reach out. I'd love to see you guys if you are around. Until whenever we figure out when we decide to talk to you again, that is my friend Bob Rose. I'm Brendan Boylan. Thanks for tuning in to the post-game show. And until sometime next week, hope you guys find some peace, spread love, practice positivity. We'll see you then. Who dat?